Welcome to E2 Talk. Hello, xin chào. It's Tony No, and today I have a really special episode. So many of our students ask us about how to understand the complex American college and university system. And so we're really thrilled to have a special guest who's going to help us learn more about all of these. Maria Bibler is the guidance counselor at the International School of Ho Chi Minh City American Academy here in Ho Chi Minh City. Before that, she was also the guidance counselor at the Singapore International School in Mumbai, India. And so she's had so much experience helping students from all over Asia get into American colleges. But even before that, she was also an admissions officer for Ohio State University. So we're super, super happy and hope you guys will learn a ton from this wide-ranging conversation. Hello, xin chào. I'm Tony, and today I'm here with a very special guest. Maria, we'd love to help our students understand a little bit more about the college system in the United States. Are you able to describe a little bit more some of the options and recommendations you have about the system there?
Yes, of course. So my background actually is in higher education and student affairs, so I studied how higher education in the U.S. specifically works. You know, there's sort of like advantages and disadvantages of having lots of different options. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of the U.S. higher education system in terms of lots of options and lots of flexibility.
Yeah.
We have about 4,000 accredited colleges and universities, and there's a lot of lingo and terminology in terms of how they're broken down, you know, between public and private and small and large and, you know, faith-based and HBCUs and all these different things.
Another common question I get a lot from Vietnamese parents is, so how do I choose the school for my kid? In Vietnam, the university system is set up like University of Banking, of Economics, of Foreign Trade, like very career-specific tracks. And in the U.S., obviously, the system is different. How do you advise them to think about that in choosing the school?
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that. There is often confusion about the terminology between a college and a university and what that means. Even some of my grade 12 students probably even now are asking me that question. You know, it's like, what kind of a degree do I get if I go to a college or university? Is it a bachelor's or what is it? And can I study this or that at college? And I think it is partially because I think most of the world generally, and I'm kind of generalizing, have kind of followed the pattern of like UK system, which is, you know, you go to a college and you go study that specific thing, and that's a college. And you know, whereas in the US it's not necessarily associated with a specific degree. It could be, but it doesn't have to. It just means a college is a bachelor's degree granting institution, whereas a university has master's, PhD, and of course bachelor's. And within a university you could have several colleges, and they each could be in a different faculty or an area, and within that could fall departments and other majors. So I think the system is set up very differently, and you know, in the UK, colleges could be just like your residential college, and you know, you could have people doing many different things, but it's not like where you get your degree from per se. So in the US, you know, if you have a university, you're part of a university, you're able to take classes in different colleges. You're not sort of restricted. You know, if you're in a college of arts and sciences, you could still take a class in the College of Engineering or College of Humanities, and there's a lot of crossover, and that has to do with sort of the way the degrees and the curriculum is set up in terms of the flexibility. You can also change your college, you know, if you change your mind. I think that's really the big difference.
Yeah. I mean, we work with so many students where their parents are encouraging them or forcing them to basically pick the major from day one. And that's almost opposite of what the U.S. system, the ethos is, about really trying to explore a variety, have a multidisciplinary education, and then once you figure it out, great, if in your freshman year. But some students wait till the end of their sophomore year before they declare a major.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even officially declare my own major, I think, until I was a junior. I mean, I was taking classes in what I wanted to, and what I ended up becoming my degree all along. But I didn't have, you know, I was exploring. I wasn't sure if that was going to be my thing, you know, my major. But I took classes and I realized, oh yes, this is, I think I want to keep pursuing it.
Yeah.
So
my younger brother, I think, changed his major about 5 times in undergrad. But now he's really happy, has that broad base of education behind him.
Yes, I think that is really the beauty of U.S. higher education. And I think that's what attracts a lot of students from around the world, the flexibility and how there's lots of options, which means there's a place for everyone. Yeah. So I think that is really what attracts a lot of people to U.S. higher education. It is kind of helpful sometimes to know just a little bit of difference, you know, like between public and private, especially because it doesn't always mean the same thing as it does here.
Yeah.
Or in other parts of the world.
So what's a key distinction in that understanding?
So oftentimes, at least, and this is sort of my exposure with China, when I worked and traveled in China, students would always associate public as in really, really good. If it's public, then they have all the money, right? All the money goes to public, so they have the best sort of education. And there was sort of a value and quality attached to whether it was public or private. So what I tell students here is that, you know, the quality of education doesn't necessarily differ between public and private in the U.S. So
Absolutely.
just keeping like the quality or small or large and all those things, you know, the quality of education is not necessarily measured based on the size of the institution or whether it is a public or private. Because I think in other parts of the world sometimes those words can denote like quality. I could be wrong, but so that's one thing. In terms of how, what impact does it have on them? I think cost is one factor. You know, so if it's a publicly funded institution, not always, but typically it's going to be a little bit cheaper than a private institution. However, generally public universities don't offer funding to international students because they're there to serve the local population and the domestic students. So that's probably the main difference, like I initially like to tell them. But then I also tell them, like, you know, you have to look at the total cost of attendance, and that's important. Whether it's public or private, don't worry about it. You need to see, you know, it could be the same between public and private once you figure out all the total
the costs that
exactly
happen,
what scholarships you might have or not, you know.
But in general, I guess, have you seen any public schools that offer scholarships to international students in any significant way?
Not significant. There are increasingly institutions that offer, what they do is they sort of match whatever the domestic state students pay. If they want to really attract a highly qualified international student.
I didn't know that, because most of the time you pay the out-of-state tuition price, which is much higher. Yes. But that's very rare, you know, so that's not the norm by any means. I like literally know 2 institutions. You know, like, so I think it's out of the 4,000. So, you know, clearly it's not the norm. I think some public universities do offer some funding. When I worked at my alma mater, we had a small scholarship. But again, it wasn't a significant one. It was not going to be the decision maker for that student. It was sort of more recognizing their academic scholarship to say, you know, we recognize, and that's how we recognize is giving you a scholarship, right? Your academic merit. I see. I know, like for the University of California system, right, which has several world-class universities in there, they have a huge funding problem, though. And so tuition, even for everyone, has gone up dramatically just in the past decade, from a few $1,000s to 20-some, 30-some $1,000 a year now. And their philosophy is very much, unfortunately, that if you're out of state, whether like another state or out of the country from Vietnam, they're looking to charge you a full fare because they need it to plug all the other gaps that they have.
Correct, And so the idea behind the public universities is that there's some tax dollars that the residents of that state are paying into it. Of course, over the years that has been reduced. There's federal funding and state funding that go into the state institutions, but over the years it's been reduced, the percentage. So I think, yes, the non-resident, including the international students, you know, the increased fees is for that reason.
We touched a little bit on scholarships and funding a little bit from public schools versus private schools. I was wondering can we dig in a little bit more? What are some of the recommendations you have for international students from Vietnam who are cost sensitive and need to find some sort of financial aid? What advice would you give them?
One, do your research really well. Two, this is something they can totally do that doesn't require much. Apply early. Apply early. There's no external factors dictating that, so you have total control over that, and I feel like that's something they can easily do. Not easily, it needs a lot of work, but you know what I mean? They have control over that.
Preparation.
Yes. So a lot of colleges require that students apply early for scholarships, and even if they don't, it definitely helps when you get admitted earlier and you're sort of in the pool of applicants for being considered for scholarships.
So does that mean generally round one?
Yeah, and applying early is not necessarily early decision, but just applying early action or just applying early for universities to have rolling admissions.
Don't wait till the deadline.
Exactly, yeah.
Is there a good target month generally that people should be aiming to?
I would say you should try to get all your applications in before December, like before the year ends, the account, and just try to aim anywhere November, December, because most deadlines fall, between December, January, February, and March. The early deadlines will fall as early as October 15th. But most of them are November and December. Most early deadlines tend to be between November and December. So I think that's something that they can do that doesn't require a lot more besides just doing everything earlier. And it's totally in their control. But then doing a lot of research. Luckily, I feel like Vietnamese students are in demand, and a lot of colleges, universities, especially come out here to recruit students. We've had almost 150 visitors, colleges, universities from all over the world. Majority are from the U.S., but a range of universities come to recruit our students, and I think they come to Vietnam and they come and do these big fairs because they're really looking to attract Vietnamese students, and they offer scholarships because they want to attract Vietnamese students. Our current graduating class, 25% of them are getting scholarships that vary from as low as $10,000 to $100,000 for a degree. So I think Vietnamese students luckily are in a good position if you have good academic profile and you apply smart. Choose not all the Ivy Leagues, but make sure your college list is based. If cost is a factor in your decision where you go, then definitely be very careful in terms of which colleges you choose. There is money out there. You just have to be careful with where you apply and do your research.
And where's the best source of information to find out about these scholarships and financial aid available?
Yeah, there are some general sources I recommend, but so much of it changes year to year with colleges. I've spoken to some of the same colleges between last year and this year, and some of them had something that they don't have anymore, or some of them didn't have something last year, but now they have something, in terms of scholarships. I think colleges, honestly, direct admissions representatives and going to the college's website is probably the best source, but it can be very cumbersome.
You can't go to 4,000.
Exactly. So it's, so I try to tell students, definitely try to make the most when you go to fairs or if colleges are coming here to engage with them and get that information firsthand. But there are some resources like College Express is one of them that does a good matching for students. I like College Board's website, although they are a little low in terms of when it comes to, they have limited information when it comes to international student scholarships. So a lot of the scholarship websites that are more focused on U.S. citizens and domestic students. There is one specific one called Funding, Funding Your U.S. Study.org, and that's actually a website that's through the International Institute of International Education, which is a nonprofit U.S.-based organization, and it has a lot of good information specifically for students looking to study in the U.S. And it's free, so that's always a nice perk too. Both of the websites are actually free, but Funding Your U.S. Study.org is a government-supported but a non-profit organization.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll put links to all three of those sites into the video here so that people can follow up on that. So we touched a little bit how like it's always helpful to start early and be prepared. What advice do you have for students who are just entering high school now? Like, what's the first thing that they should be thinking about?
So what I tell my students, I just actually had a couple meetings with all of my grade 9 students, and the things we focused on, I was like, first of all, do some soul searching, right? Like, who are you? And it seems like a really big question.
Yeah, what if I don't know?
Yeah, exactly. So I start off with give them 10 questions to just answer some things about themselves. What are the things that they enjoy and how do they spend their time? What are their favorite classes? It doesn't have to be this sort of just like when you ask a grade 12 student, what are you going to do when you graduate? It seems like this big question. I'm like, just tell them what are you going to do in the next year or two. It could change. Don't worry. You don't have to feel this panic when people ask you these questions. Especially luckily for this generation, they're going to have multiple careers and, they're going to constantly be studying and learning and gaining new skills. So it's even less should be less of a, burdensome question. But I think it's important for them to know who they are and what do they want. So start with themselves first. And we do some career exploration related activities. I always tell them think of you as a learner. Your academic profile, and of course, what family priorities there might be in terms of finance or other things, immigration, and then kind of look at what options make sense for you. Are you the type of student who'll be fine if there's 300 students in a classroom and still be able to navigate that? Not that people are not successful in those environments, because they are. I went to a university that was really big. But yeah, kind of, answering those questions for yourself and then seeing what makes sense.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there's another really good free, unbiased resource that I like to recommend, which is Education USA.
Yep.
So I worked with them a lot when I was on admission side of the world, when I came and actually recruited around different parts of Asia. I worked with them very closely when I lived in Mumbai, and I've not fully partnered with them yet, but I know that they have a lot of services. I'm on their listserv, and I see they offer great resources. Again, free workshops for all kinds of things, from preparing your college essay to navigating what's a public university and what do they offer, what are public research universities, to preparing for your visa interview. All from the very beginning to the very end. There's just so many resources that they offer that are free and again unbiased, which I think is very important, especially given the climate of Vietnam and the market in higher education. So usually this is a really good, again, free resource called Road Trip Nation. Road Trip Nation. Yes, that I recommend for students to go through. They sort of answer very simple questions like, what do I enjoy and what can I keep doing and not get bored of, and just 3 different questions, and it populates a list of interviews of people who made careers out of those same things.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And they're short interviews, less than 5 minutes each, and they can go through and it's sort of like doing informational interviews, but they're already done for you.
They've done it and organized it for you,
so it is actually usually freshman college students doing the interviews in that interview.
That's cool.
And they're interviewing somebody who's made a career out of that. And they can kind of mess with it and go back and change. They're like, oh, this set of interviews and people's professions doesn't seem like something I want to do, and I can go and change. So it helps them. So I tell them always to start with the career search, because that's important. They need to know, and again, the career might change, but there's some key things about what they might want to do will be in several of the careers and jobs they might have. And personality. So those 2 pieces I try to integrate. So who they are as individuals. Maybe you like computers, but are you the type of person who likes being with computers and with people and train them? Or are you the type of person who likes being on computers and just being on your own and developing codes and websites, So depending on the type of person you are, the environment may be different in terms of what you might want. And then we kind of like take it to the, digging into the college prep stuff. Of course, standardized testing is one thing that I'm really emphasizing with my students now that I've realized they're all a little nervous about it.
Yeah.
So
the vast majority are waiting far too long before they start prepping for it.
Yes. So helping them sort of create a roadmap for themselves in terms of what is standardized testing going to look like for me based on my situation, what I want to do, where I want to go.
Any parting words of advice?
I think the biggest piece is what I said earlier in terms of the quote. I think, again, no matter what access you have of resources when you start, we're in the national curriculum, it's really about sort of your own individual personality and what you can bring to wherever you go. And you can make the most out of that experience, or you could go, like a elite university and still not gain as much. So I think a lot of the rankings focus on the input, but not as much on the output. And what you hear is not, the product that came out of that. And I think the student, if you have sort of that grit and the drive to even apply to the U.S., which is like a whole, it starts like in year, as we've said, year 9 and 10. So you're already sort of making a lot of strides in that. Then I think you'll be fine no matter where you go.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for all the time and for all the advice, Maria Bibler.
Thank you.